In October 2022, I had the opportunity to travel to Walt Disney World for the first time ever, and I had a blast, except on Mission Space. But as a massive Twilight Zone fan, the attraction that I was most excited to ride was the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. I did my research and tried to spot as many of the hidden Easter eggs from the show as possible. This was my experience. First off, the whole trip was great. However, I definitely underestimated the toll covering all 4 Disney World parks and 2 of Universal's in under 10 days would take on my body. Hollywood Studios was the last of the Disney parks we went to, and even with a rest day in between some of these visits, I was feeling it by then. But that was the park I was looking forward to most. Galaxy's Edge, Toy Story Land, the Indiana Jones Stunt Show, Muppet Vision 3D, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. I wanted to experience as much as I possibly could. Luckily, I was able to pace myself and still get to just about everything I wanted to check out. Of course, the main event was the Tower of Terror. Long before I was a Twilight Zone fan, I'd see commercials for the ride and feel that mix of intrigue and fright that get you hyped up when you're a kid. Cut to decades later, and I was finally right there, staring down this building on Sunset Boulevard. It wasn't the first attraction we experienced that day, but by the time we got to it, the wait was about 35 to 45 minutes. Now, this next part was kind of my fault. We decided to bite the bullet and pay for the Genie Plus Pass, which at the time was a little less expensive than it is now, but it was still more money combined with how much else we had to spend just to be there. However, for the Tower of Terror, I wanted to really take everything in, including the entire queue and the atmosphere it exuded. So we went into the standard entrance, and that proved to be a mistake. It did not take 35 to 45 minutes to reach that ride. We sat in the garden area for what felt like hours. We were barely moving, and it started to rain on top of that. I did enjoy the period ambiance the music created with little bits to look at along the way, but it was not worth the time we were stuck out there. Eventually, we ditched the standby line and were able to make it through the Lightning Lane entrance relatively quickly. Walking into the lobby got me so pumped. I was looking every which way, trying to catch the Twilight Zone references, but also just kind of in awe that I was actually there. We went into the library for the pre-show, and the buzz was building. I had seen the video that's played online before, however, being there in person was just another experience entirely. Walking into the boiler room area was fine, nothing too exciting there. When we reached the service elevators, the bellhops we interacted with weren't quite as committed to the bit as I was hoping, but they have to stand there for hours on end. I don't blame them for going through the motions. Hearing Mark Silverman's Rod Serling narration got me right back in the mood. The first scene felt very much like the Haunted Mansion, which I had ridden before, containing similar effects and tone, but with a Twilight Zone twinge. I really liked the window shattering at the end of the hallway, just as in the Season 4 and 5 intro. Going into the Fifth Dimension area and actually moving inside it was by far the best part of the attraction for me. Everywhere I turned, there was an homage to the show, and I was in heaven experiencing it. After that, we got another narrator bit and went into the big drops. I know it randomizes how many times you fall, and it's not just one big plummet, but this was still fun and gave me a great view. I'd been on drop rides before that really hung out up there for a long time to squeeze all the anxiety out of you before they pull the trigger, so this wasn't scary for me in that way. The drop ends on a screen showing a combination of the Season 3 and Season 4/5 intros with the theme blaring, and it's just great. The characters from the hallway scene show up again before we see Rod one more time, and the final narration plays over the speakers. There's a basement area which has more Easter eggs hidden inside before we were let off the cart. The spot where they show off the ride pictures has a ton of stuff on display, and the back end of the lobby has a few nice pieces to look at before you're let outside. After day turned to night, the whole tower lit up with bright colors and shadows dancing in the window. It looked amazing. I wanted one more ride to take notice of as many TZ references as I could before we left for the evening, and learning my lesson this time, we walked right up with the Genie Plus Pass. So, these are the things that I saw, and we're talking about Twilight Zone stuff here, not hidden Mickeys or other things. When you first walk in the lobby on the right side, you'll see a desk covered in cobwebs and a poster behind it. The poster is for something called the Tip Top Club, featuring a live orchestra on top of the tower. The leader of that orchestra is none other than Anthony Fremont.
Don't make any noise when the music's playing.
Indeed, it is the famous Bill Mumy character from It's a Good Life. I guess he got tired of sending people to the cornfield and took up music. He did seem to like when Pat played the piano for him. Kind of a random name drop considering Joey Crown from A Passage for Trumpet would have fit this much better, and there was another It's a Good Life tidbit later, but an interesting little Easter egg that's clearly visible when you arrive in the building. On the cobweb-covered desk in front of the poster, I initially thought were the broken glasses of Henry Bemis from Time Enough at Last. I'm not gonna lie, I had a tough time seeing under those thick webs, but I'm pretty sure a pair of glasses are visible. Regardless, I guess those aren't them. Apparently his real glasses are in the library where you watch the pre-show video. Let's just get into that, shall we? There are 2 separate libraries guests are escorted into. We didn't get to choose and were corralled into the one nearest to the entrance both times. So maybe I missed some details because of that. On both occasions, we were stuffed in, and I didn't have a chance to inspect the room as much as I wanted. I looked for Bemis's glasses to no avail, but did spot a couple zone references. The first was the devil-headed penny fortune teller machine from Nick of Time. It sits on the top shelf to the right of the TV.
There's no question about it.
Another top shelf secret is the miniature spacesuit from the classic installment, The Invaders. That one sits to the left of the TV and is one of my favorite finds. The episode is a lot of fun. You should check that one out if you've never seen it. The book From To Serve Man is supposedly in there somewhere, but again, I couldn't locate it in time. I've also seen pictures of a row of books that are actually Twilight Zone episode scripts, a trumpet like the one in the story I mentioned earlier, and a pair of envelopes labeled Victoria West and Rod Serling. This is meant as an homage to the Season 1 finale, A World of His Own, where writer Gregory West can bring to life a character of his by describing them. From what I've read, each envelope is in a different library. We were apparently in the one containing Serlings, but I just wasn't able to get close enough to see. The pre-show video itself has its own history behind it, as it attempts to create a brand new Twilight Zone episode where you're the star. It's well done. They repurpose footage from Rod's on-screen intro to It's a Good Life and place him in the appropriate setting for the ride with Silverman dubbing his voice. It was sort of a surreal moment to see all these folks watch the authentic Twilight Zone opening in this little room in Florida. The legacy lives on in some form this way, and I hope they never remove the TZ theming from the attraction. When we got to the elevator, I was looking hard for the inspection certificate signed by Cadwallader. In Season 1's Escape Clause, Cadwallader is the name the devil uses when interacting with the main character. I thought it was on the outside of the doors, but it's not. I spotted it at the very last second on the inside of the elevator. It's smaller than I thought, so keep an eye out. After the main part of the ride is over, the vehicle rotates and moves to the basement exit. On the right-hand side are a few more props from the show. The first I didn't see, even though I was looking everywhere for it. I'm talking about the slot machine from The Fever. According to the pictures I found, it may have just been too far below my sight line to catch. What's easily spotted, though, is the ventriloquist dummy Caesar from Season 5's Caesar and Me. If you watched my review of the dummy, you know that Willie was the exact same ventriloquist dummy, so that's basically a 2-for-1. Lastly, once you're off the vehicle, you approach the back wall where your mid-ride pictures are displayed on a monitor. Below that is a classic phrase of Rod's that he'd sometimes use when introducing an episode. There's a bunch of stuff behind the monitors, but I didn't notice any direct zone references. Don't get me wrong, I'm no expert, so if you spotted any TZ Easter eggs I missed or know about more that I didn't mention, feel free to drop them in the comments and tell me about your experience at the Tower of Terror. Also, if you enjoyed it, leave this video a like to help grow the channel, and tell me if you're interested in more content similar to this. I was thinking of possibly ranking all the attractions from Disney World and Universal Studios at some point. Till next time, stay off the 13th floor.